creates unity. Your opportunity. Your opportunity. Your opportunity.
You can make other people who feel like nobodies, but treat them like a somebody and make them part of something bigger so they feel like their life is meaningful and they're making a difference, then you can do really, really well in business. What I like to say is if you want to own your success, own a problem. If you want to rent your success, sell your product and services based on their features and benefits, because that is renting. So instead, what I say, and this is going to sound funny, but you will remember it after this podcast,
Mm.
go brisket. Go
Mhm.
brisket. You want to talk slow and low. The least amount of words wins, meaning that if you talk too much and it becomes even the slight bit confusing, you're
Mm.
forcing people to burn their brain cells to figure out what you're talking about. So in that entire visit, I have solved nothing except I've let them know I am fully capable to solve their problems because I am empathetically listening to each thing they're saying. They will leave that visit feeling like Derrick gets me. He understands the pain and the problems I've got. Don't underestimate the power of just calm, cool, well-placed words, because the right words spoken at the right time, said to the right person about the right problem, can lead to great profits.
Hello and welcome to the We Marketers podcast. I'm Andrew, and my today's guest is someone who truly understands the power of genuine marketing and the real human conversations that lead to trust, connection, and success. I'm honored to introduce Derrick Kinney, a successful entrepreneur who built and sold one of America's most respected financial firms. Derrick is the author of the national bestseller Good Money Revolution and is frequently featured on Fox, CNBC, and CNN. Derrick, I'm super excited to have you today.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. It's a real pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me. I know you have a lot of choices, and you picked me to be one of your guests. I'm honored. So thanks for having me.
Derrick, to kick off our conversation, could you share a bit more about your personal story and how you came to focus so passionately on genuine marketing and authentic client conversations?
Sure, and I'll tell you a personal story. So it starts off in the sixth grade. I moved here from Buffalo, New York. I live here in Arlington, Texas. And as you can see, I have a slightly big nose. And I was teased about my nose mercilessly as a kid. And imagine moving from somewhere, you're the new kid in town, and you start getting teased about stuff. I had asthma pretty bad. There's a lot of things going on at the same time. And it was a tough road. And so junior high, high school were pretty tough. But my mom gave me a book, and it was called Go For It, by a woman named Judy Zarifa. And in this book, Andrew, was a chapter of all things called How to Be Popular. Well, I had nothing to lose. So I read that book over and over and over again. But that one chapter just glued my attention. And I began to practice it. And it talked about saying hi to people and asking people questions and getting to know people, making them feel important. And I began to do that. And I began to build relationships in high school. And so I had this crazy idea that I would run for student body president. So I'm a junior in high school now. Keep in mind, I did not come from the gene pool of the popular kids. I was not well connected. I had everything going against me, but I was a nobody, but a nobody with the heart of a somebody. And what I realized is I looked around the high school, there were all these other groups of students that, like in the band or the basketball team, football team, the cowboy crowd, all the different groups that kind of hung out. And I had this idea to approach each of the leaders of those groups and say, hey, this is going to sound crazy, but would you be willing to get a picture with me, us shaking hands? We'll put a picture on a poster board above where you and your group hangs out at school.
Hmm.
And it just says, vote for Derrick. Well, suddenly everybody got excited because now all these nobodies felt like they were part of something bigger. And I'll never forget the crackle of the microphone the end of the day when they counted the votes. And the principal said, and your next student body president is Derrick Kinney. And there were cheers all over the school because it wasn't me that won that day. It was all of us that won that day. And what I realized was when you can make other people who feel like nobodies, but treat them like a somebody and make them part of something bigger so they feel like their life is meaningful and they're making a difference, then you can do really, really well in business.
Oh wow, what a great story! And I can relate because when I started this podcast, I was worried a lot about how can I find guests for my podcast. People don't know me, right? But interesting thing, when I started to approach people and saying, "Hey, I haven't started yet. I have no subscribers on YouTube, but still I want to do it. I want to share knowledge with the world. I want to learn from people, and I want to give to the world through myself." And interestingly, that almost 100% of people to whom I reached out to, I've got positive responses.
That's
And
great.
May, for example, is the record month for me. I have around 6 or 7 recordings scheduled, which is insane.
Congratulations on two things. First of all, having so many bookings, but also I want our listeners to catch what you just said, and that is you were vulnerable and you were honest. Many people I talk to try to act like they're somebody when they're not at that point, and people pick up on that. But when you can say, look, I've got this crazy question for you. I'm brand new. I'm starting off, but I really respect you. It's really hard for people to say no to that because they admire the vulnerability and they think back to when they were in your shoes and they remember and they want to help.
And when we are talking about companies, right? Um, there are always people behind companies, and this term genuine marketing, it sounds like pretty obvious and pretty easy term, but at the same time, how can we make sure that our marketing is really genuine and not something fake, I would say?
So let me take you into a scenario that really caused me a lot of problems as a business owner. So I built a financial planning business for 25 years, one of the top in the country, actually. But there was a problem I had, and I had to deal with it. And that was when people would ask me, what do I do for a living? I used to cringe when people would ask me that because I knew when I said I'm a financial advisor, people's eyes would glaze over. They would look like they wanted to leave the conversation. People automatically lost interest. It was terrible. And I had to come up with a better way. And what I began to do was instead of saying I'm a financial advisor, I began to connect with people with what I call a relatable problem. So let me ask you this. Let's say that you're in a social setting and you're mingling around the room and you meet a person and the person asks you, hey, what do you do for a living? And you say, in my example, I'm a financial advisor. And the person says, oh, okay. And then you ask that person, what do you do? And that person says, well, I'm a personal trainer. I help people work out, eat better so they can look good. And you say, okay, great. And you might ask a few questions about their education or how long they've done it and so forth. And the conversation ends. Well, then later on that night, you meet someone else and she asks you, hey, what do you do for a living? And you say, well, I'm a financial advisor. And she says, oh, okay. And then you ask her, what do you do? And she says, well, you know how busy business owners and entrepreneurs want to take care of themselves and want to look good, but they typically don't have the time or the money to do it? Well, I custom tailor workout plans that fit within busy people's schedules and their budget so they can look good, which is important, and feel good. And when they're older, they can be the cool grandparent that has enough energy to chase their grandkids across the floor. That's why I love what I do. Pause. Okay. So the night goes on. Well, about a week later, you're talking to your significant other and you say, you know what? I really feel like I need to get in shape. I want to find a personal trainer. Andrew, which of those two personal trainers would you be more likely to call?
Hmm. It's an interesting question. I think the second one, right?
Yeah, and why did you say the second one out of curiosity?
Uh, Maybe because it was more like human-like.
Yes, and that's the answer, and that's the response. So what that person did was they didn't say they were a personal trainer at all in the description. They simply talked about who they connect with. So the person you're talking to says, that's me. This person is
Mhm.
describing me. and then gave this transformational quality of, I want to look good. I want to feel good. I want to be the cool grandparent that has enough energy to chase my grandkids across the floor. They gave you a vision of what the future could look like. And when I began to do that, literally everything changed for me because I went from worrying about people asking me, what do I do for a living, feeling like I'm just saying something, to actually truly connecting with someone. And here's another example. Let's say that some of your audience has a teenager in their house. Okay. So let's say one dad of a teenager is talking to another dad of a teenager. And the one dad says to the other dad, hey, does it ever feel like when you talk to your daughter, what you say goes in one ear and right out the other? Well, instantly, that other dad will say, yes, I completely understand what you're talking about. It's this visceral response. And
Mm.
that's the goal. So, to truly have that human connection when you're a professional that wants to work with high net worth prospects and high net worth clients, instead of saying, I'm a realtor, I'm a CPA, I'm an attorney, I'm a financial advisor,
Mhm,
whatever it
mhm,
is,
mhm.
then you say, you know how so many people worry about running out of money in retirement? Well, through our 3-step plan, we help take away the worry and anxiety people feel so they can feel confident and have peace of mind and enjoy the retirement they want. We specialize in retirement income planning. Then you might tell a story about a client you work with. So the whole point of that is you're engaging the person in an instant problem that they connect with. And often either they personally feel or they know someone who feels it. So they're like, oh my gosh, I understand exactly what you're talking about. That's the exact pain I have as well.
And this is true marketing, right? Talking about our customers' pains, and actually, it's a huge challenge for marketers to really shift from packing their messages into some fluffy stuff like, "Hey, we are the best," right? To talking about our customers' needs. And I think this must be kind of shift in our mindset as marketers. Maybe you have some advice on this, how we can really uh, think in a way like this.
Yeah. Well, what I like to say is if you want to own your success, own a problem. If you want to rent your success, sell your product and services based on their features and benefits, because that
Mm,
is renting. So let me contrast those two things. I had an organization come to me and say, Derrick, I'd like you to talk to our entire field force around the country. There was like 5,000 realtors. And what was happening was this group, when they would talk to people, just talked about, hey, I'm a realtor, I'm in real estate, assuming that the person they were talking to would automatically understand what they were saying. Or they would position themselves as, you know what, a lot of other people charge a full commission. Well, we charge a discount commission. So choose us. What was happening was the people weren't positioning themselves based on their unique expertise and the unique problems they could solve for people. They were simply selling based on, I have the lowest cost, I'm better than this person at this. And when you do that, you're tying yourself to the features and benefits of your product and service. And inevitably, a competitor will come along very quickly and have a cheaper product, a better product. And so the goal is you want to distance yourself from a product or a service. You want to connect and own a problem. For example, if I'm working with a group of realtors, we're not talking about, hey, we help you buy a house, is we help you create a space that you will have a lifetime of memories in.
mm,
Describe for me what that ideal space looks like. Well, now we're talking about an entire lifetime of measuring how tall people are and the marker spots that we have on the doorways, and we have the dented walls and all the activity that goes on. And imagine yourself crawling on that floor, chasing your own grandkids. What does that floor look like? All those details. And you want to get people to think about what is their dream home because you're able to pull out of them what it is they have inside. What is the core problem? What holds them back? In other words, are they really worried about, I want to make sure my house appreciates, or I want to make sure my house is in a safe, environment with good schools where my kids can grow up and I can be part of a community. So all of that, you want to understand what are the core problems. So when you're describing what you do, it's that first impression moment. You're talking about it in a way that connects with people. And one of the things I've learned also, this may sound funny, but I'm here in Texas and there's a valuable marketing and communication lesson, Andrew, that we can all learn from how people cook brisket. Okay, I love
Mhm.
brisket. It's nice and tender, so good, so good. Well, how they cook brisket is low and slow. They cook brisket on a low temperature and they cook it slowly for a long amount of time. And I got thinking about that. I'm like, wait a minute, that's really a key to effective communication. And let me tell you a quick story.
Mhm.
Let's say that you're in a situation and you get caught completely by surprise. Someone says, "Andrew, can you do this? Or could you lead this prayer? Could you make this announcement?" And a lot of times when you're caught by surprise, your voice goes up a couple different octaves. Okay. You sound more nervous, you sound more anxious, you sound like you're not prepared or in control of the situation.
Yeah.
And so what I tell people is when you can begin to talk about, here's what I do for a living, often people feel that anxiety well up inside them and they feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to make this great first impression. And they sound either A, too scripted, or B, they sound nervous and anxious. And that raises the anxiety of the person you're speaking with. So instead, what I say, and this is going to sound funny, but you will remember it after this podcast,
Mhm.
go brisket. Go
Mhm.
brisket. You want to talk slow and low. So, for example, if someone says to me, "So, Derek, what do you do for a living?" You know, Andrew, how so many people they worry about running out of money in retirement. As I'm slightly nodding my head, yeah. Well, through our three-step strategy, we custom tailor a financial plan so people won't have the worry and anxiety and they can live with peace of mind and live the retirement they've always wanted. We specialize in retirement income planning. Pause. Now, what I did there is I completely changed the tone of how I'm describing what I'm doing. So I often think of it as almost like doctor mode. If a doctor was delivering some very serious medical news to you, the doctor wouldn't say, "Andrew, let me tell you something." No, no, no. The doctor would say, "Andrew, I need to tell you something that you're not going to want to hear, but I need to tell it to you straight." And what happens is there's this body language aspect that occurs when you talk low and slow, people automatically draw in because they're curious. Now, what is he or she talking
Mhm.
about? They must really know what they're saying. And so it takes away any level of sales awkwardness and just you're face to face with a concerned person who is worried about your welfare. You see, that to me is the definition of the first step of human marketing.
Wow, wow, wow. I want to practice. Can we practice right now with me?
Let's practice. Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Well, Uh, so,
Andrew, tell me, what do you do for a living?
so I, oh wow, it's
That's
it's
okay.
it's 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 such a hard thing, you know.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So I believe that many businesses have problems when running businesses, and they really need to go to their clients and to find their markets. My goal is to help businesses to find their way how they approach clients and how they really find them and how they really build this credibility on the market. All right, that was hard.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to practice and to consider. I just feel that this is can be a really valuable thing to implement.
Okay. So, can I give you some feedback on what we just talked
Mhm.
about there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, sure.
All right. So, one thing that I didn't tell you was the least amount of words wins.
Mm.
So, when you're talking to someone, the least amount of words wins, meaning that if you talk too much and it becomes even the slight bit confusing, You're
Mm.
forcing people to burn their brain cells to figure out what you're talking about. And when you do that, it causes them to shut down and then move on to something else.
Mhm.
It's sort of like a billboard that you drive by on the highway. If the billboard doesn't automatically make sense to you, your brain just says on to the next one because there's going to be another one coming down the road. So, what I heard you say was that part of your concern, what you believe is that companies are not really connecting with their potential prospects and understand them. Okay. So, one simple way to say that, a suggestion I would have for you to consider would be, um, as opposed to say, I believe, which is still strong, you might say, you know how so many companies struggle to understand
Mhm.
who their real client is and connect with them? We solve that problem. Boom.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Then, because what you're doing then is, let's say you're talking to somebody in business, then they'll be very quick to understand. Yeah, you know how so many businesses struggle to truly understand and connect with their ideal customer? And somebody says, yeah, because for most people, that's a common struggle. Then you can then say, well, through our insert whatever plan you have, through our 3-step customized marketing strategy, we help businesses understand who their real clients are so they can grow their business and crush their new customer goals. Boom.
Boom. That's great. That's
So,
great.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always great to describe something amazing, like with house, right? We bring you some dream that you had, like everyone can imagine this. But what to do with businesses that we consider dull businesses, like some B2B services that are hard to explain, and so on and so on. How can we implement this messaging and really tell not about services, but really about pain points?
Well, there's a couple pieces here. First of all, understand the principle that people purchase passion. People purchase passion, meaning when they sense a company or an owner is passionate about anything, it automatically elevates the excitement of what's going on. So, for example, I had a knock on the door recently. There was a young person outside my door. I opened it, and the person was just excited. They said, "Mr. Kinney?" I said, "Yes." "Hey, we're raising money for the band booster club at the high school. I know you get asked for money a lot, but we need to purchase a couple extra instruments that'll help our band sound even better. I'm so excited about playing in the band." I said, "What do you play?" "Well, I play the trumpet, but we're all helping out together here. Would you be willing to contribute 25 or $50 to this cause?" And this person's enthusiasm was so infectious. I said, "Sure." And I gave him 50 bucks. Okay. Now, if somebody else came to the door, I probably wouldn't do that. But because I could sense the passion, I could sense the excitement, it made me even more excited about it. And so, step number one is, are you expressing a level of excitement about your product? Because people purchase passion, but it also creates intrigue about the product itself. Number two is, you've got two pathways to choose from. One would be, what is the greatest benefit that your product or service offers? Okay. That's
Mhm.
one line of thinking. The other line of thinking is, what's the greatest pain point? What's the greatest problem that this product or service solves? Okay. And what I find is, ultimately, even if it's the ultimate non-sexy product, okay? I mean, think about something crazy like the diskettes that are in urinals of all things. I mean, can you think of a more unsexy product? Or, like the pieces of paper printed off that get put into fortune cookies. I mean, whatever that may be, ultimately, you've got a product and your intention is to make a profit. And so, therefore, you've got to connect passion and a problem solve to that item. So, what I would just think about is, the person that buys this, why are they buying it? What problem do they have that you're helping them solve when they buy this? And then what I like to do is, on a website or in marketing literature, simply call that out as a connect emotion. For example, on one of my websites, it says, you make good money, but it feels like you're living paycheck to paycheck. Well, now, when I say that, that connects with most people.
Yeah.
Most people feel like they're making good money because the word good money is very subjective,
Mhm.
but they feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck. That's an emotion that's connectable with most people. And so when you can use that language that connects with a relatable problem, people automatically say, this person gets me. It took 0 brain cells for me to understand what that means. But if instead I say, financial planning and the algorithmic variables often cause people to not save enough for retirement, boom, delete, I'm moving on. You see the difference there? So the goal is, and the game you're playing, with the least amount of words, how can I connect with my ideal customer with their relatable problem? That's the core issue in one sentence.
Yeah. Fully agree. It's interesting thing with genuine marketing, especially now in the age of boom of AI, right? Many people are talking about being authentic with their messages to stand apart in this huge flow of AI generated content. What risks do you see here? And what things should people keep in mind to really make their communications genuine?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me take you to Dallas, Texas, about 2 months ago. I was at a fintech event, actually, specifically wealth tech. So I was asked to host a podcast where I interviewed 22 of the world's leading wealth tech innovators. And it was fascinating talking to each of them, men and women, deeply caring, passionate people who their sole goal is, how can they save time and help increase productivity, in this case, for financial advisors? But the concepts extend far beyond just finance. And what they talked about was they estimated in most cases between 5 to 15 hours of additional time that their tools and practices will free up for advisors. And as I began to talk to all these people, I realized, wait a minute, we have a huge problem here. And the problem is all of these wealth tech people are working so hard to carve out and give advisors more time. The problem, though, Andrew, is these advisors may not know what to do with that time to bring in new business. In absence of a plan that they can feel confident in, that matches them, they don't feel cringy about it, they're gonna be scrolling ESPN, looking at cat memes on the internet more, looking at TikTok, and companies will spend all this money, and they're not gonna get the return on it, and that's not right, okay? So one of the things that we talked about was by implementing this strategy of basically 5 steps in kind of in a selfless plug here of what I do when I'm on stage, talking to advisors and anyone who are professionals to humanize this interaction. Because as I like to say, tech gives you space for more face to face. Ultimately, what's going to happen is the human aspect will be one of the greatest differentiators for every professional. From the handwritten note, which has gone so far out of style, to the face to face connection with people, to people feeling valued and important, that's going to become an exclusive practice because so many people want the easy way out. They just want to think I can just email people and leads will come in. I can just DM them on LinkedIn and I'll get the automatic client. Now, do you get business that way? Yes, you can. And I'm not dissing that at all. But ultimately, when you can connect with people, whether it's face to face or online, in a human way where people feel like this is a real person that I'm actually talking to who understands my fears and my pains and my dreams and my goals, that's where the magic occurs. And so, what I would tell people is if you've got a firm, let's say you've got a 5 to 10 person firm, that powerful question, what do you do for a living, is very, very powerful. And it's also very sales generating. So, I met with a company recently And the founder of it, this was a small, what's called an RIA, a registered investment advisory firm, so a group of financial advisors.
Mm.
And this advisor was feeling the pressure all himself to bring in new clients. And what I shared with him was once we walked through this exercise of determining what is the relatable problem that you solve, and we went through this exercise that everybody can do, by the way. I had him look at his past 5 clients and then look at his 5 favorite clients. And of those 10 clients, it's like a focus group telling you, here are the problems that you solved for me. And so it's a way to say, based on my last 5, are these the people I want to keep working with? Am I solving the problems I want to solve? Are these profitable clients? And if not, every 5 clients, you can make an adjustment to make sure you don't end the whole year and wonder, why did I bring on so many clients who aren't a good fit? If that makes sense. Okay. So once you identify that relatable problem, then, and this was a big eye opener, not just for him, but for people I work with all over the country, the rest of their team also gets asked all the time, what do you do for a living? The receptionist, the office administrator, the compliance person, anybody else in the office. And they often will say, well, I'm an administrative assistant. Well, that's walk, walk, walk. There's no interest there at all. But instead, teaching the entire team to say, you know how so many businesses worry about connecting with the ideal clients they most want to work with? We help solve that problem. And now they're all saying the same thing. What that does is suddenly it expands the opportunities for new business. And then by incentivizing your team that each time you say that, and each time a lead comes in that you generated because of what you said, I'm going to reward you financially for that. So now you've basically empowered your entire team to be a sales force and help take the pressure off of you.
And it's about inspiration, right? Personal inspiration. Like when you're saying, I'm putting bricks into the wall, right? Or I'm building cathedral.
Yes, yes, exactly
Mhm.
right. And it's just step by step. You know, one of the things that I will often talk with people about, and let's take you now into, you've got a real prospect visit occurring. And by the way, marketing, it's important to use the right words. Words equal wealth. I never use the word meeting. A meeting is someone that you have with your proctologist,
Hmm.
the doctor that tells you bad news. But a visit is something you have with someone you care about, a family member, a friend. Let's have a nice, open, warm conversation. So I always have visits with my clients.
Mhm.
They respond to that terminology a lot better than the word meeting. But moving on, let's say you're now in a client visit. They're with you in the office, by Zoom, and so forth. One of the fatal mistakes that most business owners, entrepreneurs, any professional makes is they tend to start solving the problems for the prospect in that visit. Now, what I'm going to say may be very unpopular, but I was on a stage just a few weeks ago. And after I stepped off, there was a line of advisors that formed. And one of the common comments was, Derrick, what you described has cost me so much money. I wish someone had told me this years ago. And here's what it was. Instead of thinking about how can I solve the problem during that initial visit, you want to stir the problem and not solve the problem. You see, what most people think
Mhm.
about is when a prospect asks you a question, by you giving them the exact answer to it, you're helping them. You feel like the hero in the moment. But the problem is, most people will say, why didn't that person ever become a client? You see, that prospect leaves your office or time with you believing, well, my problem is solved. But you know that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole line of other problems that you need to help them with, or they will not be better off. And so, what I tell people is the real problem you're solving is letting them know that you understand how to solve their problem. You're not solving the problem, you're letting them know how, that you understand how to solve their problem. You stir the concern and not solve it. And here's what that sounds like. So, Andrew, tell me what concerns you the most about not feeling like you connect with your ideal clients. and then whatever you say. And I would say, well, and I might, a rookie would jump in. Well, here's what I would suggest you do. Fight that. Push those words back in your mouth. You want to say, well, tell me what concerns you the most about that. Andrew, what would happen if you don't solve that problem?
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, is that something that you like my help with? Yeah. And then I either as I'm typing or I'm speaking, okay, Andrew wants my help with how do we solve this problem? So I say it out loud so the prospect hears me say out loud, yes, you said you want my help to solve this problem. Then you move on to the next problem that they want solved. So in that entire visit, I have solved nothing except I've let them know I am fully capable to solve their problems because I am empathetically listening to each thing they're saying. They will leave that visit feeling like Derrick gets me. He understands the pain and the problems I've got. So that's a very fine line. But when you can stop solving and start stirring, you'll become a much more highly compensated and I would say respected professional.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, wow. Oh, that's great. What you shared right now, I understand that I did exactly this mistake, trying to solve someone problems right away, right from the beginning of the call. Because of course, I'm an expert, right? I can do marketing. Let's go. Let's do this.
Well,
Yeah.
and you're not alone. You're not alone. And it's hard. It's a discipline to hold back of wanting to jump in and solve it. But I will tell you the trusted pros, and this is how I built a high recurring revenue business, is because clients knew that I wasn't going to shoot from the hip. I would ask a lot of questions and I wanted to pull out of them the problems and the fears and the worries and the concerns so that they knew Derrick clearly understands what I want. And also, one of the things that people overlook is if you're too quick to solve the problem, it can sound like you're giving a cookie cutter solution. And that's exactly opposite of what highly paid professionals want to do. I was consulting with another, actually, this was a CPA firm, and they realized that they were quoting the same fee to every client. That upon describing, here's how they work, they would say, well, the fee for that is X. It was this fixed amount. And they began to get some pushback because a few people said, well, is that what you charge for everybody? And it confused the client. And so instead, we taught them a concept that's called range pricing. So let me model what that would look like. So let's say that you're with a client and or a prospective client, and you're in that initial visit, and you might say something like, okay, based on the concerns you've shared, and I would go back and restate out loud, concern number one, you have this, concern number two. And again, just to confirm, these are things you do want my help with. Is that correct? Yes, we want your help. Okay, you want my help with these. Here's how we work. And I would jokingly say, of course, I'm not the only advisor in town. There's other advisors that are here. But here's why people select us. We are specialists in this. I would describe that. So I'm never disregarding any other professional. I'm actually stating that I am not the only person you can pick from. So that way people know that they like when you say that. It's humbling. And then you say the people choose us because we specialize in this. Now, based on the concerns you've shared, we are what are called fee-based professionals. And so the fee for what we're talking about here would be approximately, let's say between, $7,500 and about $10,000. And I said, and what I'll do next time we visit, as we get deeper into your situation, then I'll be able to give you an exact number as to what that looks like. Okay. So let me stop there. Now, here's why that's important is because you've given them a range, and then you also want to follow up with, does that feel comfortable to you? So in that moment now, you're going to call out, are they comfortable with that level of fee? And if not, now you know. You hate to go to the next visit and then get this shock and awe. Oh, Derrick, that seems high, or yeah, that seems reasonable. Okay, great. And if it seems high, then you could go into the discussion about it and address it right there. Okay. So then now keep in mind psychologically, if I quote you 7,500 to $10,000 as the customer, what do you believe your fee will likely be when we meet next?
I would go for the higher one.
The higher one. That's
I mean,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And so now let's go to that next visit. So I call that kind of the data gathering, asking a lot of questions. Let's get really honed in on their goals and their dreams and elaborate on what they talked about the last visit. And then we talk about, okay, we talked about last time the fee range would be between about 7,500 and about 10,000. Based on what I observe here, I think we could probably do this for about, I'm going to say probably 8,750 or about 9,000. Okay. So I always go lower
Mhm,
than the highest number that I stated because the
mhm.
customer's coming in thinking it's going to cost $10,000 automatically. They always go to the
Yeah.
high number. So when you come in lower and by you've priced it where you're still making a clear profit. Your model is very, very strong, but it's how you describe it. The people feel like, oh my gosh, that now this person is very real and relatable, and the fee is custom tailored to me and my goals and my dreams. And even I like to use even odd numbers. That's why I said, it may be I think the fee is going to be about 8,800 or maybe 9,100. So then it feels
Mhm,
very specific and very tailored to the person because the goal is when you're working in a professional environment, the stakes are high. You want every box for that customer to feel like this is custom tailored for me and me alone. Now, your processes are going to be the exact same for every customer. How you do things, but how you describe it and the uniquenesses and the quarter twists that you give it will be unique to that person. But behind the scenes, you may be producing very similar work, but it's how it's presented and how it's communicated is why you're getting paid bigger dollars.
mhm. It's interesting with numbers. Are you using numbers with zeros? Because, for example, I remember in the book Never Split the Difference, they suggest that you use numbers like 21,437, that it sounds like it was calculated precisely on a calculator and yeah, like final price.
I like that. I like that. I mean, ultimately, the goal here is what you're fighting against. And let me kind of share this briefly. When you talk to people about what you do and you describe your fees, the person on the other side of that table or the other Zoom has a mental checklist that they are filtering what you're saying through and you don't know what it is. And it's not fair to you, but it's true. Okay.
Mm,
So, for example, if I say to someone, I'm a financial advisor, well, a mental checklist might be, my gosh, I had a friend that their advisor sold them this huge insurance policy that they didn't need. I don't want to work with a financial advisor. Well, financial advisors are expensive. And so all you have said is, I'm a financial advisor, but this person's mental checklist is going through all these things, judging you in that moment. That's why it's important to connect with a relatable problem. So when you begin to talk about your fees, the more open and honest. And by the way, it's important not just that words equal wealth, but also your body language is very, very important. And so when I talk about fees, I always lean back. I
mm,
lean back, I talk lower and slower, okay?
and
Because
slower.
it's casual. It's nerve reducing, anxiety lessening. It's all about just talking about, hey, we would love to work with you. The fee for that is going to be between about 7,500 and about $10,000. That's what it will take, in my opinion, to provide the level of service that I feel like you deserve and need to achieve your goals. Okay. Now, by the way, even saying those words there let people know, oh, well, this is what you feel like I need and I deserve to achieve the level of success that I want. That's hard to argue with as well. But again, if you're leaning in and you look nervous and your voice gets faster paced, that conveys this person has this air of desperation about them. And we can't allow that to happen. In that critical moment, you got to lean back and think brisket, low and slow. Now, and typically you'll see the possible customer lean back and mirror your body language as well, because you're signaling to them by leaning back, this is a safe place. This is a calm discussion. I have heard you. I want you to feel understood. And this is how we can add value to you.
Derek, what I'm thinking right now, that it's a huge skill that people really, if they want to success in this, they need to practice, I think, years and years, right? And
Well, not even years. They can, I mean, the key is just to start. The key is just to start and then test it and see how people respond to it. So for example, with the business concern that you shared earlier, is begin sharing that and just see how people respond. And at some point, somebody will say, yeah, that makes sense. And now you're onto something. So I don't think it necessarily takes years, but what I would tell you is years of consistently doing it,
mhm,
you'll see the payback. But I believe advisors. Here's a quick story. This is kind of funny. This has happened twice now. So I was on a call with a financial advisor last week. He reserved some time with me to talk about a big acquisition he was doing. And he said, Derek, before I tell you, I got to tell you something important. I said, yeah. He said, well, I've just been reading your LinkedIn content for a couple months. I just picked up a $7 million client last week just by using what you talk about on LinkedIn. He and I had never even met before. And it was
mhm,
his next door neighbor. Okay, how crazy is that? And what happened was he finally found a way to simplify his messaging. He was able to tell his neighbor about the relatable problem that he helped solve. His neighbor was actually looking for a new
mhm.
advisor. And what his neighbor said validated everything that we're talking about today. His neighbor said, oh, I never really understood what you did for a living, but now I do. You see, he just thought he was a financial advisor. Who knows what that is? But when he talked about we help people make sure they don't run out of money and have enough money for retirement, oh, I get that. He began to work with him. And then a similar story, not a month earlier, a person picked up a $2 million account, also his next door neighbor. And it was just having these intentional but casual conversations to weave in. Yeah, I was visiting with a client recently. I think you might like this story. And he shared with me that he didn't really know what a financial advisor did. And so, in case you ever wonder, here's the core problem I most often help people solve. And he described the problem. And the guy was like, well, I need that. And so he became his next client. So don't underestimate the power of just calm, cool, well placed words, because the right words spoken at the right time, said to the right person about the right problem, can lead to great profits.
When you're saying this in a low voice, very slow, I just feel like this wave of calmness goes through me, and I really feel better. Yeah, yeah. This is really great.
Well, it means a lot that you say that, because that is the intended goal. And the fact that you and I have not met before, this is our first time to visit
Yeah,
and doing it on a podcast, that basically confirms that that same tone can be felt even through a screen.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You don't underestimate that as well. So thank you for pointing that out. I think that'll help a lot of people.
Yeah, you've already shared so many insights in our conversation. It's such a valuable episode for me. I'm personally learning a lot, and I definitely want to explore your book. Could you tell a little bit more about it and where our listeners can find it?
Yeah. So the book came about from conversations I would have with many clients. And obviously, as a former financial advisor, I sold my business a couple years ago. I wanted to help people make a lot of money so that they could enjoy a lot of goals and really enjoy a lot of freedom in their lives. And we had much success. A lot of people, we moved from middle class to millionaire, and they've done very well. And one of the things I found though was there was this underlying tone that began to come out. And basically it was, if I make too much money, people will think I'm a bad person. Or if I look at Amazon or Microsoft or these big companies, well, those CEOs, because they make so much money, they have to be oppressing their employees, and therefore
Mm.
they're bad people. And I began to hear this cultural shift that said, if you like money or even enjoy making money, there's something wrong with you. I thought to myself, that is not right, because I've always loved making money. I just love it because I get to give more of it. And so my philosophy is, the more money I make, the more money I get to give, which then motivates me to make more money so I can give more money. And I call that the Good Money Revolution, which is the name of the book. And so I like to say, make more money and do more good with it. And so the whole point of the book is, it's an empowerment for people to say, especially for business owners, entrepreneurs, any professionals, to say, look, if you make a bulging bank account your number one goal, you're going to burn out. You're going to sacrifice relationships and friendships, even your own interests and goals. And you'll probably reach the top of the mountain at some point, but then you'll look around and you'll realize it's a lonely place because nobody is there with you. And that's not right. It's just like the end of so many classic movies where the main character laments, if only I had spent more time with my family, if only I had done this and this. Listen, I fashioned myself as sort of an anti-regret specialist. So no regrets. And so to have no regrets, we want to then pair up what is a cause that you care deeply about. So for me, it's local education and supporting young people. We just launched a new course through simpleteensuccess.com, which is a way to help empower young people and give them the tools they need to succeed that schools don't teach. So that's a passion of mine. So what I like to do is I set aggressive goals of how many clients can I now serve, because I do a lot of speaking and coaching all around the country on helping people what to say and do so that high net worth clients choose you, and teaching them how to do that. And so I set big goals because then I can give more to the causes I care about. And so the goal is, I want to make a lot of money so I can help a lot of people and then do more good with it. So if that's you, if that's somebody listening and watching right now, this book can be a motivating factor to say, go make more money and do more good with it. It's a way to lay your head on the pillow at night knowing that you lived a day of meaning and purpose. And you can buy it at Amazon or any place you buy books.
After this podcast, the first thing I will do, I will go to Amazon.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that.
Derrick, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining me today. It was an amazing conversation. And I encourage all the people listening to us or watching us on YouTube to connect with you and to follow you on social media. What is the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Yeah, the best way is on Instagram at Derrick T. Kinney, Derrick T. Kinney, Kinney. And then also our website is successforadvisors.com. And that's advisors meaning all professionals.
Great, great. Derrick, thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you, Andrew.
Winning is crazy. Your opportunity, your opportunity.